Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey y'all, welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. I am so glad that you are joining us today. Thank you so much for listening. If you're new here, I'm so glad you're checking this out and I hope you'll stick around. Be sure to listen to the end of every episode. That's where we have the kids only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. Well, I am so excited for today's show. I mean, honestly, I get excited about all the shows. I know I probably say that every time, but I really am excited because today is all about big construction. There's a hospital near my house and we drive past it as we're getting off the highway and we always see this huge tower crane and they've been adding onto it to make it taller. Well, from the highway, you can see this giant crane. It's super tall, lots of stories high. I can't imagine climbing up those ladders, trying to get in that thing, trying to work it. It's so big. But I know a guy who does. My friend Kenny has been a crane operator for 17 years. He is certified on 6 different types of cranes, including the big tower ones, which is actually required to operate any crane. You have to have a certification. He's also an OSHA trainer and currently works as a safety coordinator for a construction company in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's also an ordained minister and he serves in youth ministry. He has a huge heart for helping people he works with understand that God has a specific purpose for our lives. Kenny and his wife Brandy have 6 kids, and he also coaches soccer, football, baseball, and basketball. He's a busy guy. Kenny is one of the most joyful people I know. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation with my friend Kenny Loch. Kenny, I'm so glad you're on the show today. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I'm really excited to be here today. This is awesome.
I am so thankful that you're on here today because you have, I think, one of the coolest jobs. So I'm excited for you to share about that. Will you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Kenny Loch, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I actually saw your mom last weekend, and I told her I was going to be talking to you.
Good.
So, hey, has she been on the show yet?
Yeah, she was my first guest.
Was she really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've got some competition then. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I live here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I work heavy construction, and that is my occupation. That's how we pay the bills. So that's what I've been doing for quite a while now. So
very cool. Okay, so before we get into all the details of what you do, we always like to start out with a joke because this is a podcast for kids, so we got to have a joke. And you have quite a few kids at your house, so I'm sure you've got a lot of jokes to choose from.
Okay, so I got 2, and I tried one of them out on the kids last night, and they kind of gave me a laugh. So I don't know how well it's going to go now. Okay. So we'll start with this one. So there's fishing and stuff like that, and so if you're a kid and you're listening to this and you're familiar with fish, there's a type of fish up near Maine that was very popular, and it's like a cod is the fish, right?
Right.
Okay, so with that being said, what did the fisherman say to the magician?
I don't know.
Pick a cod, any cod.
I like it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I got another one. So this one's more like a story, though. It's like a story, funny story. Okay, so there was the kids are sitting in the classroom, and the teacher tells them that they need to do this assignment. And so open your book, start your assignment. And she leaves and walks out of the classroom. Well, there's one kid in the very back of the class who's just, man, he's like a mean kid. He's like a bully, really, really angry all the time, man. And so they're all sitting there. It's real quiet. Everybody's doing their work. Well, all of a sudden, that bully in the back of the class slams his book down real hard on the desk and stands up and says, "Hey!" Everybody in the classroom stops. They look back at him. And he says, "Everybody on this side of the classroom, y'all bunch of scaredy cats. Anybody got a problem with that?" Well, nobody says anything. They just real quietly stare around. Nobody says nothing. He sits back down. So everybody starts doing their work again. Then a couple minutes go by. He slams his book down again. It's real loud. All the kids stop, look back at him again. And he says, everybody on this side of the classroom, y'all don't even know how to do your own homework. Anybody got a problem with that? Well, nobody says anything. Well, then all of a sudden, this one little skinny kid, the smallest kid in the class, stands up. And everybody's looking at him like, oh, my goodness, what's about to happen? And that bully looks at him. He says, you got a problem with that? And the kid says, no, sir, I'm just on the wrong side of the class. And he walked over to the other side.
Nice.
That's it.
I like it. Okay, so let's talk about your job. Okay, so you work heavy construction, and one of the coolest things I heard about your job, like I found out you were doing this, you work in one of those really tall cranes, like those tower cranes. Can you tell us about that? Like what you did to get started in working in that?
Okay, so you're right. They are called tower cranes, and they're huge. And so kind of how we got started in doing that, when I finished high school, I moved down to Wilmington, and I started doing landscaping down there. Well, my first summer down there, we got hit with like 3 hurricanes. So 3 hurricanes came through that summer. One of them was not a bad hurricane, but the other 2 were they caused a lot of damage. So I had never run any equipment or nothing like that before. I'd run lawnmowers and weed eaters. Well, in order to clean up all the stuff, all the trees that had fallen down, all the sand and everything that had washed up, we had to use some heavy equipment. And so that's how I got started using heavy equipment. And then I kept doing landscaping for a while, and I moved up to Raleigh. And when I moved up to Raleigh, I just saw there was like help wanted, and they wanted somebody who could run equipment. And it was like 2 types of equipment. It was an excavator and a loader. And so I don't know if the kids know the difference between the 2.
What is the difference between the 2?
So the excavator is the one that's got the long arm on it, and it's got tracks, you know?
Okay.
And so the excavator is really cool. It can spin all the way around in a full circle. You can reach out and grab, dig, and just do a lot of cool stuff with it. And you can like crawl through anything with that thing. With those tracks, you can like run over mud, grass, dirt, cars if you want to, but don't do that. That's not good. But there's pretty cool. Those machines are really, really awesome. And then the loader, you've got a rubber tire loader and a track loader. So the rubber tire loader it's got 4 wheels on it, and it's got one big bucket on the front of it. And that is used specifically for loading like trucks, because it reaches up real high over the side of the truck and then dumps whatever it is into the dump truck. And so that's a pretty cool machine too. It's real strong, real powerful. And so I had to run one of those, but I'd never run an excavator, you know?
Uh-huh.
And so those guys were like, we need somebody who can run both of them. And I was like, well, I knew I could run it. I just had never done it. And so I was like, yeah, I can run it, man. Let's go. Let's get on it. And so my first job was actually at NC State here in Raleigh. They were doing the field house out there, the football field. So we went up there and, started running that thing. And they put me on the excavator first. And that was probably a bad call. And I was praying. I was like literally praying. I was like, please don't put me on that excavator first. Because everybody's looking at the new guy. You walk down there, like all these big construction workers are tough, and they've been doing it for years. And I walk in there, and I'd never done any heavy construction before. And walk down there, I get on that excavator, and I literally I wasted their time for about an hour before they pulled me off of that thing. I was going so slow. I looked like I was in steady turtle mode. I mean, it was just slow as I could be. Those guys were like, who is this man? So anyway, they took me off of that, and then they put me on the loader, and I was good enough on the loader that they kept me around. And then shortly after that, they put me in the tower crane. They asked me if I wanted to try learning the tower crane, and that crane was 160 feet tall.
Wow.
Out there. And I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. And so when I climbed that crane, it was like, man, I was so tired. It's hard to climb up those things. And about 80 feet, It's like everything changes, like the way everything looks, the perspective, the depth perception. It is crazy. At 80 feet, man, it really changes.
So to describe it, it's one of those really tall tower things you see like when they're building tall buildings, like that's the tower. So is that like an excavator at the top, or is it just, it can do anything up there?
So it's basically just a hook. It's a hook. So you've got a tower, and then it almost looks like a tower laying sideways on top of a tower, you know?
Right.
And so it's got a hook and rope that go back and forth. So you swing around and you can drop that hook anywhere, you know, inside the circle and pick things up and set them down where it needs to go, which is really useful on a project that is a high rise, because you got to get all that material up to the top of that building.
Right. So I always thought there was like an elevator to get you up there, but you have to climb it. Like you have to climb a ladder.
So look, there's like a myth that goes around, and you still hear the tale on the job site. It still goes around that every one of those cranes are made with this elevator that they keep talking about. So yeah, you climb up, and the crane's built in sections, and so most of them are 20-foot sections, but they can be different than that. But you put a section up, then you put another section on top of that, another section until you get to the top, and then you put the top on the crane.
Wow.
And inside those sections is ladders. So then you climb up the ladder, and it's got kind of a guardrail around it. So if you fall, you just fall down the ladder and not off the side.
Okay. And do you like hook in? Like, do you have to like have a rope or something to get you up there, or you just?
Oh, that's a good question. And no, we don't hook in, but we do have a rope that like I'll lower down and pull my lunch or pull whatever it is you need for that day, you know, your book bag or whatever, you'll pull it up like that, so you're not having to carry stuff while you climb.
Okay. So you're 100 and how many feet in the air? Like how tall is it again?
So that one was 160. I think the tallest one I've been on is like 324, and they go even taller than that.
Wow.
But
how many stories is that?
If you think that is where I was going. That's crazy. So imagine a 2-story house, and then imagine, man, I guess 30 houses stacked on top of that one. You know, it's so tall. It is so tall.
Wow, that's crazy. So you're up there, you get buckled into your spot, you're doing your job. You said you got some books and some lunch up there. What happens if you have to go to the bathroom? You climb back down.
Oh my God, Kristen, that is like the question. Everybody asks that. So if you got to go to the bathroom, you got to do it up there. So you need to set yourself up. I mean, it's like being on a long car trip. You either got to go in the bottles or buckets, whatever you got. So that's kind of where you're at up there. That is, man, all the kids always wonder that. It's like, man, I do not want to be stuck up there, and then I got to go to the bathroom.
Right.
But so you can't climb up and down. So there was a guy one time that got sick. I mean, he literally like got food poisoning up there, and he had to come down. You can't stay up there like that. So,
right.
But the job shuts down when the crane stops.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. So is it like nerve wracking? Like, do you get nervous or scared when you're up that high? Does that make you nervous at all?
Kristen, I've said so many prayers up there. And then there's like different tasks that you do that are like more scary and more risky, I guess, than others. And so on windy days, I mean, that thing moves around like you're in a big boat. I mean, it literally goes side to side, front to back. And so on windy days, bad weather, I always got really nervous up there on those. And then when you're building it, when you're putting it together and taking it down, you've got to literally be in the seat running it when you're taking it apart and putting it together. Once you get the tower up, now you got to put the crane up there and you climb up and you sit in the seat, and the crane's not even all the way together yet. And that always made me extremely nervous and scared.
Wow. And you have to do all that by yourself. Like there's not another person up there helping you connect it.
No, there's a whole crew that comes up, and they're like hanging off the side. So that makes you nervous too, because these guys are like hanging off the side, and they're way up looking down. They're reaching out real far, like hanging over, trying to grab the other piece of the crane and pull it together. And that, okay, so here's the other thing. There's another crane on the ground bringing pieces up for your crane. So it literally goes, they bring a crane in to build another crane that builds that crane that I'm sitting in. There's 3 cranes that have to be involved in it. It's so crazy.
That is crazy. I cannot imagine. What is it you love about doing that job? Like, what is it that you really enjoyed about operating the tower crane?
So the tower crane, I really loved it because it's almost like you were just helping everybody on the job. Like everything that got done on that job, the tower crane was a part of it. Like you bring this stuff up for these guys. You have to move this stuff out of these guys' way. These guys have a truck that needs to be unloaded. There's no way they can unload it. So the crane's got to pick all the stuff up off the truck and bring it up top. You pour concrete with the crane, all the concrete that builds that building. You know, sometimes you're pouring with the crane. And so there's just so much stuff that the crane is required to do. And I really like that you were involved in almost everything in there, the hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
Really neat.
How long does it usually take to put something together? Like if you're up there for weeks and weeks at a time, like how many days does it take or weeks does it take to build a building like that?
So the most aggressive schedule I've ever been on was we did 2 floors a week, 2 floors a
Wow.
week. And that was the Sky House in Raleigh. But there's a time before that and then a time after that where you're kind of getting things set up to move that fast, and then you're kind of finishing up. So it usually on the Sky House, that was a 23-story project, and that one was a little over a year. I think it ended up being 14, 16 months.
Okay.
And so they usually those projects, usually 18 months is about as long as you want to be in a tower crane.
Yeah. That's amazing. I can't imagine like having that kind of job where every single day that just seems stressful to me to climb up a ladder like that every day. But I mean, I like that you said that you just like to really help people and you're helping every part of the job. So is there a part of being a crane operator that you don't like?
So I did not like being, and when the tower crane, you're up there and you're up there all day. And so I didn't like being kind of isolated all day. Some people love it. It's like a dream come true for them. And so for me, but I'll get energized being around people and talking to people and working with people like together. And so that's what I didn't like. Now, if you're on the ground crane, like I've run crawler cranes and other cranes on the ground, it's not as bad because you can get out and talk to people in between picks and kind of figure things out together. But you're up there all by yourself all day long. And so you're the first person there and the last person to leave. So you don't really get to talk to a lot of people face to face. You talk to them on the radio and stuff, but it's hard to have face to face conversations with them like that.
Yeah. But I bet the views are incredible.
Oh my goodness, Chris, they are so beautiful. So like you get up there, you see the sun rising every morning. You know, the Bible says that every day his mercies are new. And so you are constantly reminded of that. And then the end of the day, that was always really cool too. And then you just get to see like over the trees during fall time, you get to see all the leaves changing color, and then spring when the leaves coming in. Yeah, it really is. You're right. It's a beautiful view up there.
Yeah, that's amazing. So is there parts of your job that you feel like, you said you pray all the time when you're up there high, but like, what is it about your faith in God that helps you with your job? We'll be right back after this. You know, raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
So I would say that a lot of the times, and I don't know if it's just this occupation or it's kind of across the board. I feel like you could see it everywhere. Sometimes you just feel like maybe you're inadequate or you're not equipped to do what you've been asked to do and stuff like that. So there was a lot of times like that where you felt like, man, I don't know if I can do this, or man, this is going to be really tough, or I've never done this before. So a lot of situations you would face daily, I would always pray and be reminded that God is with me and that He's put me in these situations, that He's allowed me to be where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And if He's done that, He's also going to be there to equip me and give me what I need to do what He's called me to do. So that was always a reminder. And every time I prayed and went to the Lord, on any of those situations, that's what always came to mind, was that, hey, you know what? I'm with you, Kenny. You got this. You can do it. I put you here, and now let's go. Let's get it. And I always trusted Him in those situations, and it was always it always worked out.
Yeah.
It was good.
Has this job changed your faith in God?
It has changed it as far as, I guess, strengthening it.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of times where I've had to lean on him, and you don't normally like leaning on people. You always want to I want to do it myself. This is how I want to do it. This is how it needs to be done. And I've been in a lot of situations in this job where I've had to lean on him. I had no other choice but to lean on him. And that has caused me to trust him just a lot at a lot deeper level, where you can see him working everywhere. And then now I lean on him voluntarily. Now I can't wait to lean on him.
Yeah.
Like, Lord, I can't do it. Let's do this together. So that's kind of where I'm at now, is where I wasn't quite there before. So yeah.
That's good. I think a lot of times we want to have faith in God. We have to have strong faith and believe in him, but we have to sometimes go through difficult circumstances or different situations in order for that to grow, right? And so having those opportunities gives you that ability to grow.
I'll say a lot of the people out here too has been it's been pretty cool, because a lot of the people that you connect with, or you find out their life story, or kind of more about them and their family and where they're from. You get to bring up conversations about how you have trusted the Lord and how you walk with the Lord and how he's guided you. And there's just a lot of good opportunities in this occupation to be a light, and to share the truth with people that maybe haven't heard it before, or maybe know it and have been running from it. So there's a lot of those opportunities too.
That's amazing. Has there ever been a crazy story with or something that happened that you can't believe you got out of that situation alive?
Okay, so this is a crazy one. So a lot of the newer tower cranes are they're real. They got all the computers, they've got all the safety stuff on it, the top of the line safety stuff. And so those are nice to run, but you don't always get a brand new crane. Sometimes you get a real old doozy. And so I was running one of these old doozies at a project here in Raleigh on Boylan Avenue, man. It was a parking deck and a condominium mix. So the crane didn't have an actual, like, you didn't know how much you were lifting on it. So most of the cranes have scales that you can tell them, kind of see, I can go out this far with this heavy load, or it needs to be right here where I can pick it up. So you need to know the weights of stuff. And before they had scales on computers, you just had to know what the weight was before it got on the job site. And so this was one of those projects where you didn't have scales. So I would literally look out at the front of my crane, and I knew that when I picked up like 13,000 pounds, the crane would dip down so far. So I'm looking at the crane and I'm looking at the tree line. And when the crane starts getting down to where the tree line is, like the crane's bending over, then I know that that's about as heavy as I can go. So I was picking up something, and those guys were like, well, we think it's about 12,000 pounds, Kenny. I don't know why I'm talking like that. That's how they talk, I guess. So they're thinking that, and I'm like, well, okay, well, let's hook up to it and see what we get, So we're hooked up to it, and I'm tugging on it. I'm lifting up, the crane's bending over. I'm lifting up, the crane's still bending over, and I'm looking out, and the crane is now bending over, like down below the tree line, where I know that's about as much as we can do. And I'm like, hey guys, is it floating yet? Which means, is it up off the ground yet? And those guys are like, well, we think it is. Hold on a minute, Oh, no. And so and I'm like, oh my goodness, like now I'm stuck here with this thing, and I don't know what's about to happen. So they did like loosen it up or something. It was wedged up weird. So then when they let go of it, man, the crane like shoots up a little bit and it starts rocking back and forth. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is so crazy. So I was really, really glad to be done with that specific task, right?
Yeah, that one definitely was a prayerful job. You're like, save me, Lord.
Yeah, exactly.
So we always talk about like things that we're learning through our jobs. And we were talking earlier about how you've been learning about gratitude. What is it about gratitude that is so important to you?
So gratitude, man, gratitude is it's a character that is always, it always plants like this seed around you. And so whenever you're grateful and you're thankful at any age, I mean, even as a little kid, I remember people would talk to my parents and say just how I always said thank you. I was always real kind, real respectful, but it was because I was always grateful for whatever people did or talked to me, or just even a piece of candy, you're really grateful for.
Yeah.
And so I've learned as I've gotten older, through school, through living on my own, through starting my own family, through my own job, that being grateful and showing gratitude towards people and also towards God for what he's given me, that it's always returned like this, just a great vibe between you and the people that you work with. It's like God always blesses that. When you're grateful and you show gratitude, it just, God magnifies that somehow. It's like miraculous. So I don't always feel grateful, to be honest with you. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be here today, or I'm so aggravated or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll stop, and it's like, man, I go to the Lord, and then I start thinking about all the things he's given me and how he's blessed my life and he's blessed my family, all the way from when I was little, all the way from like kindergarten. God's always been good to me. And so I start thinking about those things, and it's a heart transformation happens. And the day just turned out being just tremendous as opposed to what it started out as. And so it really begins in our hearts. Gratitude to me is the single most effective thing you can do in order to get your heart and perspective right for whatever it is you're about to face,
Yeah. And even like you said, when you don't feel it, still showing that gratitude. Sometimes we have to say things and then our heart catches up and we'll feel it later. But for right now, at least just acknowledging it, that we should be grateful. And I think whenever someone shows gratitude, it's always an example to me, whether they're showing it to me or to someone else. When I see someone else showing gratitude, it makes me want to do it as well. So like you said, planting that seed is so important.
It's contagious.
That's right. That's right. Well, Kenny, this has been so cool to talk about your job. I love that you get to do this kind of stuff, and I love knowing that a little bit more about it. I had no idea that you had to like bring your lunch up there and stuff like that. So that's cool. I always like to close out my show with my guests by asking them to tell me a memory from when they were a kid. So do you have a memory you want to share with us today?
Oh, I do. You know who else loves memories from kids is my own kids. They always like hearing stories. They like the stories when I get in trouble.
And you have how many kids? Tell the audience how many kids you have.
Okay, so I have 6 kids, and the oldest one is 13, and our youngest one is 2. So they are, and can I tell their names real quick? Can I do that? Okay, so we had 3 girls first. We had Carolina, Ellie Mae, and Shirley Temple. So those are our 3 girls, and then 3 boys followed. So we had Chevy, Cash, and Crew as our 3 boys.
That's awesome. And they're all so fun and so sweet. And I love all your kids. And I love your wife. She's one of my favorite people. Okay, so tell us a memory from when you were a kid.
Okay, so one memory that stands out, and I don't know why this one came to mind like when we started talking for some reason. I remember I'd gotten in trouble, and I can't even remember exactly what I got in trouble for, but I got a spanking from my dad. And my dad always gave he gave like the hardcore spankings. And so I never looked forward to those from dad. So, but I got a lot of them because I was a wild kid and I got in trouble a lot. And so I remember he gave me a spanking, and I'm not sure what happened with him. Maybe he was expressing some gratitude to the Lord's afterwards. And then we went and got ice cream. So I don't know. We hardly ever went to get ice cream anyway. And so I don't know what happened, why all of a sudden that worked. But I do remember that it made things okay. You get in trouble, you feel like it's the end of the world. And so I remember feeling like that. Well, then when we went and got ice cream, it was like, okay, but guess what? Things, you get another shot, you get to start over. It's not the end of the world. You keep moving, everything's okay. Right. And so I just remember that, but it was get a spanking and then go get ice cream. And so that was pretty neat. It's pretty cool. Awesome. It's kind of sweet and sour.
That's good. I like that. Good story. Well, Kenny, thank you so much for being on the show today. This is so exciting. And I'm so glad we got to share your story and talk about gratitude, because that's so important. And I love that you do this job. I think you do it well, and I'm excited for hearing more about it in the future.
Yeah. If you're ever up in Raleigh, maybe we'll climb up a crane together, do a field trip or something. That'd be fun.
I'll let you take some pictures and you can tell me.
There you go. Hey, Brandy came up on a crane with me one time.
Did she really?
We were at Duke. She did, old wild girl. So she did. That's my wife for you guys out there listening. But yeah, she got up in a crane one time. That was pretty cool.
That's amazing. How cool. She's so much cooler than I am. All right. Thanks, Kenny.
All right. Thanks so much, Kristen. Bye.
How cool was that? To work with all that heavy equipment, those cranes. Man, I definitely learned so much today, and I really had no idea how all of that worked, how they all had to put it together as a team and work together. I can't imagine seeing that or being a part of that. I loved also when he talked about gratitude. He said, when you're grateful and you show gratitude, God miraculously magnifies it. It changes your mind and your heart, and it is the most effective thing you can do to get your heart and your perspective right. Such good advice. I love that we need to carry that with us throughout all of our days, to be grateful. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So I am delighted to introduce you to one of Kenny's daughters. Her name is Ellie Mae.
Hi, my name's Ellie Mae, and I'm in the 6th grade, and I learned this song to my favorite verse. Be kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. Do, diddly-do. Ephesians 4:32. Yeah.
I loved that version of that song. What a great way to learn how to memorize verses with a really fun song. And I like the yeah at the end. I bet you have jazz hands when you do that, right? Thank you, Ellie Mae. That was so good. Well, I'd love to hear your favorite joke, or maybe an encouraging quote that you like from a book or a movie, or maybe you have a Bible verse that you want to share in a fun song the way that Ellie Mae did. You can find information about how to send that to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast, or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. Would you like to support the podcast? Here are a few ways you can do that. Be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast so that new episodes will automatically load each week into whatever podcast app you're using, and then leave a rating and a review. When you do that, it gives up and coming shows like mine a boost in the podcast app that you're using, and then more people actually get to hear about the show and they can listen too. You can also share the episodes with friends and family on your social media or through text messages, and tell them why you and your family like to listen. Or you can go to my website and click the link that says buy me a cup of coffee. And anytime you think about it, I always appreciate your prayer support as well. Well, I am so thankful that you were listening today. I am grateful, just like Kenny was teaching us today, and I hope that you will show gratitude to the people around you. Thank you so much for being a part of the Collide Kids podcast just by downloading episodes and by listening in. I hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you back next time. In case no one has told you, I'd love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Have a great week. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news, because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be, because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.